Something has been on my mind for a while. Z here, by the way. So, when it comes to agarwood, the wood accord, is it just me? Beside it, giving up that, rich, woody, sometimes smoky, deep allure that is just so fine. It also reminds me of leather notes. Before you criticize me, listen to what I have to say. I feel like there is something about agarwood as a note. Maybe it's that rich, dry, aged, woody vibe that it has. Something about how smooth and fine it is resembles leather. Because leather notes, obviously, if you, depending on the kind of leather that you smell or you're dealing with, sometimes I think leather sometimes reminds leather in itself, not as a note, can remind you of like, a nice newly made furniture or wooden thing. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two because I've noticed it with like some fragrances. So what made me like finally want to talk about it was because the other day I smelled a fragrance of someone and it was Tom Ford Woodwood. I was like, what is this fragrance? Interestingly, sometimes when you smell a fragrance or when you try, you're like, it's not all that. All it takes is for you to smell it off someone. You're like, wow, this is the best smelling thing I've smelled. It's like also with black opium. I used to be like, I don't know. Then I smelled it off someone. I still haven't bought it, by the way. I think it's one fragrance that I'm still trying to figure out which flanker that is black opium from YSL. Sorry, I'm derailing from my original thought. And now that there's so many flankers, it's like I want all flankers, but my wallet, am I going to buy all the flankers? So, anyways, I smelled it off someone and I was like, wow, black opium, is that what you're wearing? And I smelled on that person twice. And that made me realize sometimes smelling fragrance of someone gives an appeal. But now back to my Tom Ford Woodwood gist. So when I smelled of this person, I was like, what are you wearing? This has a very nice woody. That's why I said to the person that this is so sweet and woody. Oh, I like it. Like it was warm. When I say a fragrance is warm, it feels like a hug, literally. Like, there's that warmth that is just so cozy. Well, not to be rude, but it feels snug, like you want to snuggle that fragrance, not the person per se. Like it's that warm, sweet, cozy. It feels very, very you know, should I say alluring? That's the safest word to use. This is a Tom Ford Woodwood. I was like, oh, Woodwood. And I was like, okay. And I know that this is not like from what I could smell, because I've not really, really explored Tom Ford range like that. And I was like, this doesn't really smell like wood to me. It has more woodiness. And I checked the note and I was like, makes sense, makes sense. And I was like, but it just feels like, it just feels more leather than, wood. Like there's a correlation. It feels like when I smell agar wood in a fragrance, it splits into two. There is that warmth, and there is also the what's it called? The leathery appeal. There's just something so smooth. It feels like you need to lay your head on there. Like you just need to like just take it all in. That kind of thing. It has that kind of rich woody smell, but at the same time it feels very fine. Like, so I've started yapping, but I just cannot wrap my head around it, and I just had to come talk about it because I've been thinking about it for the longest, and I was like, I surely cannot be the only one. Does this happen to someone else? Because I was also smelling my rude wood as well, and I was like, the entire Marrakesh and some other fragrance I have, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. I mean, there might be some of these fragrances that have agar would have leather anyways, or notes that, have that kind of undertone. But there's just something about agar wood. I think it's becoming one of my favorite notes. I'm not going to lie. because it's just something about it, the cozy warmth and everything. So yeah, if you what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's I'm reaching, or do you feel the same way about this whole agarwood discuss? Because I can't wrap my head around it. So yeah, but and the other thing I find interesting about woody notes is sometimes, when you see a woody note listed in a fragrance, oftentimes it's interesting when it smells like it's not very, it smells more green, like still like a young tree, rather than dry and sometimes resinous vibe. I find that interesting as well. Perfumery is it busts my head. Like sometimes you just be like, what is this? So yeah, it's just something I can never ever wrap my head around. But hands up, I do like it in fragrance, like this whole leathery appeal, even besides the woodiness, like the rich woodiness, and sometimes it feels even like slightly smoky, which might be the description, but that leathery appeal, I love it. But sometimes it's just so now if I see a fragrance and they list wood in it before, but the whole background for this story, let me bring my thoughts back in a circle. The whole background for this story is because normally whenever there's wood in a fragrance, I'm like, oh, me, I don't like wood, I don't like wood. I do say that a lot. But and to be fair, wood fragrances have levels to it. Like we have the manageable wood for beginners like myself, and then you have wood that are like stanky wood for the wood lovers. So I'll always say, oh, I don't like wood. But when I see agar agar wood in a fragrance listed as the wood accord, I kind of like let it go and be like, yeah, we can work with this, we can do this. So it's slowly, I'm going to eat my words here, slowly becoming one of my favorite notes. And that also kind of means that leather is also one of my favorite notes. So, well, I do like amber and vanilla as well. Those are the basics. So, yeah. Is there any note you guys have that has that kind of like similar, should I say similar vibe that you can't just get your head past? I just had to come and do this rant because I've just been thinking about it. So, yeah. Thanks for listening to me yap. But in the comments, let me know if you have this same feeling about agarwood and leather being similar. So Z out. Peace out.